Jersey today, which is by New York. So if you're not familiar with the States, you're probably familiar with New York City. So we are right by New York City. And Peggy right now is putting on the chat an incredible conference that's free that's happening right now and this weekend. So be sure to visit that. Lots of good speakers, and you can see them just like you're seeing me. And it's free. But American TESOL, you can come every Friday. It's absolutely free. It's about this time. And also you can bring a friend. So feel free to bring a friend, join along, and you get certificates. So I'm going to type in the chat box the place where you would find all the links. You'll find the slides, and the certificates for all up to October are updated, even though it says only till August. So today we're going to take a look at teaching English through Halloween. And so we are looking at cooking and specifically. So all of these will be related to cooking. And one of the reasons why I decided to do this as a webinar is because we have there's a lot of things that you can do on Halloween, and you can celebrate through cooking. And so there's so many. You might think of things such with pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns and things like that. You have bobbing for apples. Do you know what it is to bob for apples? That might be a very American thing. American or hi American. Are you familiar with bobbing for apples? Because I think sometimes that might be something in the States. And what it is where you get a big bucket, and then there's a bunch of apples in water, and then children go and they try to, with just their mouth, grab the apple with only their mouth. So it's very different. But these are all kinds of things that happen with Halloween. And kids love to cook, and when you use cooking, even with teenagers and kids and adults, there's a lot of English that they learn, and it's a really fun way to teach. So what do kids do when they cook? Let's think about it. They have to follow instructions, so they have to understand the language. They learn about math and science because they learn about measurements, and they learn about it in a very fun way. Right here you can see where she's making shapes, and she's having a good time. Look at her face. She's very interested in what she's cooking. You get to experiment. So all cooking is an experiment. You follow a recipe. You hope for the best. And sometimes you may get things a little off measure, or maybe you cut instead of dice, and all of it, you don't know how it's going to turn out, so it's an experiment. You're guessing, you're hoping it's going to turn out a certain way, but depending on what you do, then it turns out different ways every time you cook. So even for yourself, you can know that as well. So think about following instructions in English. It's very different. And so you learn a lot of English that way, and it's hands-on, so you can tell if you did something wrong. That's a great thing about learning with cooking, is because if, for example, you can tell if you added too much salt because you use all your senses. It's the kind of learning where you actually get to use your sense of taste. And in other types of learning, you don't get to use that particular sense. So you can even listen, you can even use your sense of smelling to smell and to decide, ooh, this is vinegar, this isn't this isn't water. So there's a lot of, or food, to choose a different food. Sometimes you have to have fruit, or you put vegetables. And when you're shopping from the fruit, and when you're shopping for the vegetables, then you have to feel them, you have to sniff them, you got to see if it's good or if it's bad. So there's so many different things that you can learn, and the kind of English that you understand. So I think that it's a very great way to teach is to use cooking. And for Halloween specifically, if you cannot teach Halloween, but you can teach during the month of October, then you can see a lot of opportunities to learn from cooking. So for example, but one of the first places that you want to start is with witches and witch stories. And that's one of the things that I do. I like to make it very fun and interesting. So I have a witch's hat, and I walk in the classroom, and it looks very much like this. And I usually read Room in the Broom. And my kiddos too, when I was teaching in Germany, So I've taught all over the world, Germany, and I have taught in all of the different Turkey and Greece and all kinds of places. And so kids love this when you come in and you're dressed up and you read a witch's story. Now, what do witches cook? What are witches cooking in stories? They're a brew. It's a witch's brew. And what is the big thing that they cook in? They cook in this here. Does anybody? Yeah, a big pot. And a lot of times, specifically, we'll call it a cauldron. So a lot of times they'll get to see. You can add that to the mix. You can be a witch, and there are male witches too. We usually call them sorcerers. And if you've read Harry Potter, which is one of the most famous like witches and sorcerers and things, yeah, it's very good, Stacy. Then a lot of times you can go and you can show them these clips as well. So here are a few books that I recommend, unrecommended by others. Little Witch, Room on the Broom. I love all Julia Donaldson stuff. If you're working with older kids, you may want to do Harry Potter. And then there's even for adults and teenagers, some of the most famous witches are the three witches from Shakespeare, from Macbeth. So you can have them look at the witches in the literature, and then afterwards, you can bring in a pot or a big, huge cauldron, because then your students get to help you make a brew. Okay, so you're the witch, and then they have the big pot for the brew. Little kids like this too. Now, there's a couple of things you can do with this. You can either give them things to add into the brew. So you can just have a big cauldron, and then what you can do is you can have where they can put in, like, there's a lot of really inexpensive candies that are bugs, and they are gummy insects, and you have gummy worms, and then sometimes you can find candy that's like eyeballs and things like that. And then each of them come and they put that in our frog's lake, because and you can make it up while you go along. You can say, what is our, okay, so we're doing a witch's brew. And why would we have a witch's brew? Because you're casting a spell. So you can ask the students, but we're good witches, so, you can talk about good and bad witches. And then you can say, what kind of spell are we going to catch? Or cast. What kind of spell are we going to cast? And then they can come, and they can either add fake things, so you can tell them, and then after reading the story, they may come up with their own. I'm adding my a tongue of a cat or something, who knows what they're going to add, a frog leg, a loogie, something. And then well, see, I'm thinking this is good to follow up when you show it in a book. So if you read a book and you see casting a spell, if not, one of my favorite things to do is show the clip where you have Cinderella, and you have her fairy godmother, and she turns her into, all these things. And that's why I like to use a little video. If it's like when I was teaching 4 to 6-year-olds, then I would show them a little clip. And I would say, look, that's a spell. It turns you into something else. And then the kids like to go around, and then they talk about things. Oh, well, our spell is going to be to. So it depends what age it is, but depending on what the story is, you can explain it that way. You can even have it to where they make these things. They can draw it on construction paper, and they can each add that. So you don't have to have real things. But if you do have gummy insects and stuff like that, then they can go and they can eat it afterwards. So they'll enjoy that. Then there's spell chant. So when they're doing this, you come up with a chant, and a chant is one of the best ways, especially for young children and learners, to learn English. And there's this really fantastic site. It's called kidsonthenet.org, spells 98. So these are all spells that kids themselves have made up. So your kids can make up their own spells as well, and they can read the spell chant as well. And so then they have these kind of different things. Like they can have spell chant. So I'm going to go ahead and find that for you. Kids spell chant. But it's a great way because they see this from other kids, and then they can see that's a good way to teach the spell chants as well. Because Peggy asked a good question in the box with how do you teach them spell chant, what a spell is. Well, this is a good way to teach them is by showing them this as well. Um, but when they're doing this, of course, it's good if they can go ahead and go through the process themselves. So you can either do this as a class, and when you're doing the cauldron and stuff, you can redo that cauldron activity. You can revisit that activity because it's really good to repeat different things when you're working with students. And then after that, they can say it. But they can re-put this down, and you can practice the writing. So we've had listening, we've had speaking, we've had tasting, we've had hands-on fun, because every time they put in something, then that's a vocabulary. It's basically, you can even give them a bunch of flashcards. If you give them a bunch of flashcards and they put that in the cauldron, then that's a way of them revising that vocabulary. If they put a frog leg, then they can see the frog itself. So they make that connection and they learn that way. But they can also do this by making spell books. So there's a lot of different types of spells that are being written in a spell book. They can do this online. They can do this using zooburst.com, which is a 3D pop-up book. Whatever the kids draw, they can upload. It'll go on to Zooburst. It's absolutely free. You can use this online, and it's a great tool for kids. Or I usually recommend littlebirdtells.com because they can draw things, and if they draw their magic spells and make it really pretty in calligraphy, so you're practicing the writing as well. If you have very young kids, then it's a good way to get them to practice their letters and things and writing. And integrate that in here. And you can do technology because littlebirdtells.com will let you add that picture to the computer. Then they repeat the spell. It's really good with littlebirdtells.com because they can repeat it with their voice. So they can read it out loud, and they can make it sound like a witch. And so we go back, eye of the tiger and leg of the toad. Whatever their spell is. And then they can draw a picture. Yeah, exactly, Peggy. They can draw their own picture so people see what happens in the spell. Boggles World has a nice worksheet. So Boggles World is one of my favorite sites for teachers. So if you actually go to Boggles World, you will see they have a potion book and they have a magic spell book. So you can do both. Now they have them already for you. So with Boggles Spell, one of the things that I like to do with Boggles World is I actually like I like to use some of the format, but I didn't use all of it. And one of the reasons why I don't use all of it is because I want my kids to be very creative, so I don't want them necessarily go through the book. But they actually have a book, and then what they do with the book is they actually get flashcards with the book. So the book has it where it focuses on different words. So here you can see things like it says stir 3 times. So stirring 3 times is directions, it's instructions, and all of this is having to do with cooking too. This is the cover of their book. So they have a story and they have different types of flashcards to go with it, and then they give the students a chance to make their own magic spell. But the great thing about this is it teaches them sequencing. It says first, and then, and second. And so it's a great way to teach them that kind of language when not explicitly telling them, okay, first, you say first, because when you repeat and you do things like that, it's very boring for kids. But if they're doing a magic spell with it and they're writing, basically they're writing their own recipe here for Halloween, then they're learning a lot of language and it's hands-on. They can also do this with potions. So here you have a little girl, she's making a love potion. And I didn't find it, so Boggles World has a potion book as well. And like I said, I absolutely love Boggles World. It has some great flashcards that you can use with all of this. But one of the things that I didn't find one that I really liked, so I went ahead and I wrote my own lesson plan for this because I envisioned it another way. So I am going to show you that, and then you can have all of that, the lesson and all of that. It's free. It's on the internet, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. So let me give you first the, and they have all sorts of potions. They have potions that'll shrink you. They have potions to make you very big. They have potions to make you famous. They have potions to make you into to have long hair. And so you can have your students be very creative, and they can find a potion to do just about anything. So we can do that. This is what the activity I came up with. So the magic potion is meant to break up in pairs. So you have two people working together. So for example, maybe me and Jake here. Come here, Jake. Okay, so we would be, you would pair the students, and then student A, Jake is on student A, and Jake is student B. And they have a consultation session, okay? So these are smart witches, okay? So I'm going to ask Jake, what is, okay, so I'm the witch, and I'm going to make you a magic spell. Jake, what kind of spell do you need in your magic potion? What kind of potion would you like? What is going on in your life that you would like fixed in some way?
Well, you said it already, but I am going bald already, so I would like to have a potion to grow hair.
A growing hair one, okay. Then in my magic potion, I'm student A, so I'm the witch, and I have to figure out, you know, what I'm going to put in the potion. So we're going to say, let's see, so what would we put in the chat box? You can write, what would be something, what should we put in a potion to grow hair? What kind of things should we write? Like what kind of ingredients would we put in our potion to grow hair? Peggy says the big when he is younger. The spinach, okay, so we can put some spinach. I'm going to put tree bark because I think it was Willow that said that tree bark, if you eat tree bark, it puts hair on your chest or something. So maybe it'll work. So we're going to put tree bark. We're going to, and it's in the movie Willow. Anybody else know any ingredients that you've heard for hair, to grow hair, that makes you hairy or anything like that? So we have spinach, we have broccoli, we have tree bark. What's a hairy animal? Maybe a porcupine. So maybe we have to get the pines of a porcupine. And maybe we have to find the hair of a princess. A rare hair of a princess. So we can add all of these to our magic spell to grow hair for Jake. Okay, and now we have to make the chant, because you can't only have the potion, you have to have a chant. So now we have to come up, what are words? I have to write down words that my partner must say for the potion to work, and actions as well. So before he does the potion, before we make this potion for Jake to drink, let's see, he's going to have, and actually I think I have a bottle here. Jake, do we have that? Oh, did I leave it inside? Man. So in order for Jake to drink the potion, he's going to go ahead and he's going to have to say some words that I say. You're going to have to say hair backwards. What is hair backwards? Riar?
Riar.
Riar 3 times and spin around before you drink the potion. And then afterwards, after they do this, then they have a magic potion story. So then they come up with the story together, and they say what happened to Jake after he drank this potion. So after he drank this potion and had all this wonderful hair, they write a story together. They can use Little Bird's Tale, and they can do it. They can actually really drink their potion. So not only do they get to make this potion, but they get to drink it. And the way that I came up with this activity is, one of my favorite things to do is in San Antonio, my home city, we have these bubbly potion drinks. you get at this restaurant called the Magic Time Machine. And it was my favorite thing to do as a kid. It was a big treat. And people dress up in costumes and everything, and they come out with these bubbly drinks. So there's actually a science behind it, and there's a variety of these drinks that they can actually drink. So imagine if you made this potion. Here's one. This one's called the fizzing potion. You can either do it with dry ice. Dry ice is a little dangerous, but I have used it with kids a lot of times when I was teaching at a museum, which is something I did for 4 years. So we always use dry ice. But if you work with really young students, then this might be one. You put lemon juice, sugar, water, and baking soda. And then you prepare it, and it bubbles, and it fizzes, okay? So there's different kinds of yes, the Squeedo that Peggy just put, the Mad Science Party drinks. That's the one that I found all these from. And it has so many, so you can drink them. So you can have this bubbly mix. Your students just wrote a story, and now they get to drink it as well. How cool is that? Students can also learn a lot of science, and you can teach them the science behind it as well. So not only does Mad Science Party drinks, but what it does is that it actually will tell them the science behind it. You can make candy. So candy is something we'd also do in my science museum. We would make taffy, and we would talk about why it stretches, and you have to stretch taffy to make it. So rock candy is another one as well. So there's a great site for kids. It's called candyexperiments.com. So you can find lots and lots of candy, and this, of course, will go in their trick-or-treat bag. Yeah, it's so much fun to stretch and pull. And if you don't, then your taffy comes out different. So these are things that you can tell the kids. And I'm going to share with you a link after, and then you can find all of these. Now, when you're teaching about candy, and this is, of course, part of the trick-or-treat ritual, which is why it's associated with Halloween, there's a couple things you can teach with this. So you can teach dental hygiene. You can teach the difference between, like, when you eat candy, how to eat it properly, how to eat little amounts, sugar-free, because you don't want to give all. You may even want to ask the parents. You may want to see how much candy they can have, and only put it to a little bit, because you don't want kids going on the sugar high and going crazy, which I have made that mistake in the past. And then afterwards, they're miserable. So it's good to teach dental hygiene with eating a lot of sweets and stuff. And then you can also teach a lesson about safety tips for trick-or-treating. So if they do get an opportunity to go out in the neighborhood or anything like that, then, or even you can tell them about the ritual of trick-or-treating. And then one of the things you can also do is you can have students make their own trick-or-treating bags as well. Something really fun that they can make as well, another recipe that you make. So all of those are recipes. They all involve some kind of cooking. And there is a recipe for slime. And kids love slime. They love ooey gooey slime. And ooey gooey slime comes from, well, snails is one of them, but also from ghosts. Ghosts make slime. Or they can make monsters or aliens, then they can make the slime. So you can say, that's kind of a motivation. You can say, after you invent a monster or after you invent a ghost and you write your ghost story, then we can play with slime. So what is in slime? Well, you can go to sciencebob.com. Sciencebob.com has all these great types of experiments. The great thing for teachers is it's kind of a lesson plan for you. So it has a video that you can watch so you can see for yourself, but you can even show this to the kids. They can see the short video, how to make slime. And what he does is he gives you the science behind the slime. So to make this particular slime, you have to have Elmer's glue, food coloring, and then the kids can pick their own. They can have hot pink, they can have green, they can have yellow, whatever kind of color slime they want. Borax powder, all of this has to be included with the slime, okay? So this is a recipe they follow. There's also some links that'll show you at the end, the group of links that I give you, just one link you go to and you'll find everything. But there's some for slime. You can make there's so many different recipes. So one of these, yes, we used to do the planet of oobleck, Peggy. Peggy says we call it gooper oobleck, exactly. We made that too, the oobleck, with cornstarch, and it would go back and forth. But they have some recipes for slime that you can eat. It's funny because there's a couple of the recipes, and some of them say they're not very good. And I think, well, why would you tell someone to eat something that's not very delicious? Yeah, it was kind of, but kids, they're non-toxic, and especially with 4-year-olds to 6-year-olds, they're going to eat anything that goes on their fingers. If it's glue, they're going to eat it. They just eat it. So it might be a good idea to they can make fake blood. So that's something that's kind of tricky. Maybe they won't allow that in your school. We used to make that actually. We make fake blood when we were teaching science to kids and in the museum. And a lot of times we would even tell them about blood rituals and the Mayans and things because we taught in a thing like that. Okay, so you can have your kids pretend to be spirits or ghosts, and that they come back and they write secret messages. And so you can say it's sort of a messages, somewhere. And so they can do this with a glow-in-the-dark method. And so there's a recipe to make a glow-in-the-dark ink, and then they can write it, and then you can turn off the lights, and then you can see everybody's messages. I teach all ages as well. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up, and I'll tell you a little about my teaching experience, Stacy. But the first thing, before you do any recipe, so there's so many cool ways that you can teach Halloween in a way, and you can use these recipes, and the kids will love it. But before you do that, it's important you let the parents know, and you let them know what kind of recipes, and you give them the recipe. There's a couple of reasons for that, but one of the most important reasons is because we have to make sure that all the kids, for food allergies, in case they have an allergic reaction or anything like that. So we need to make sure that we cover those bases and that we're not giving kids things. And we should do that for any kind of snack we have in the classroom. And then there might be certain types of dietary restrictions as well. They may be kosher. They may be celebrating a certain holiday. They may not be able, due to their religious beliefs, eat certain types of things, or they may be fasting. So these are all the things that you want to keep in mind when you're working with food and recipes. Finally, you can also carve pumpkins. Everybody loves to carve pumpkins. Pumpkins, and I told you this in the last in the last webinar we had about teaching Halloween activities for kids, is when you teach when you work with pumpkins, and that's something that's associated a lot to do with Halloween. Is pumpkins are some of the most healthiest, nutritious foods for you. So pumpkin seeds and roasting the pumpkin seeds, and even like eating some of the pumpkin, it's very healthy for students. So this could be a very good option if you don't want to work with candy, because a lot of times I didn't like to work with candy. I wanted to do something more healthy. So we would do the pumpkins because they could eat that and it was good for them. You can actually find all of these if you go to this Pearl Tree. And I'm going to copy that address for you, and you will find everything. It's called Recipes and Trees. I think it's, oh, what does it say? BJ. It is case sensitive. BB. There we go. Yes, exactly, because there's tons. So you'll find so many things. You'll find my lesson plan. That's free. You can use it. You can download it. You can put it with your class. You can even put your name on it. How to make a science magic out of blood. Other Halloween cooking that you can do. They have things like mummy dogs and all kinds of really cool stuff. The stuff that I showed you today, you can make electroactive slime. That one of my favorite activities, but I didn't want to, I couldn't show you how. This is the kind of slime that it moves. It actually changes and groups together and stuff. If you put, I forgot what it was that you put next to it, maybe cornstarch or something. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the Halloween time to celebrate, and it gives you a special kind of time. If you want to receive your certificate for attending this webinar, you can always receive those by going to this bit.ly link and going under certificates. So yes, it's very cool. Click on the X when you, there's a X big pop-up that comes out with a little guy. Just X that, and after you X that, you can click on any of the things and it'll pop up in your window. It'll show you everything that you need. I've been teaching since 1994. I worked with students from 2 years old, teaching them English, all the way to 80 years old. So I've taught all over. I lived in Greece for a few months, then I also lived in Germany and taught English in Germany for 2-year-olds all the way to 80-year-olds. And I've taught in Texas a lot and different places. So right now I work and I train teachers online in Moodle. So it's very exciting. And every Friday here, absolutely free. This is actually our 200th, I think, webinar. So we've done quite a bit. So thank you so much for joining. I'm going to stop the recording so we can have this for later. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask.